I just want to say before we move on was it just me or were some of the Muppets scary to look at? Is there any uncanny valley that you guys feel looking at the Muppets, or is that just me?
I think that's just you.
Okay, like Big Bird, kind of horrifying. Like imagine Big Bird just like his neck or her neck, whatever Big Bird is, scooping down and just opening its jaw and eating you.
I loved Big Bird as a kid. Big Bird would never hurt me.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
Welcome to the Holy Moment Podcast, where we watch films with you and discuss the moments that work, the moments that don't, and the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways. I'm joined by my friends, my co-hosts, Nathaniel Lirio and Christopher Vega. If y'all would like to introduce yourselves a little.
Hello. I am so excited to not be the host because it's so much less work. But Jeffrey, the first time getting to be the host and you picked a horrible movie. So what's up with that?
Well, funny story about that. So for some context as to how we pick our movies, right? There are 5 categories, right? It's coolest movie poster, 3 degrees, wild card, made by a criminal, and what's that last category?
Black and white.
Black and white, right? And next season it'll be a different 5 categories. And for my 3 degrees, and that category for context is, I know this person knows someone else, and this person knows someone that worked on this movie. I chose the Muppets because we have a friend who has a cousin who worked on this film. Not this film, but the more modern Muppet Movie. Anyway, we recently pulled that movie from the hat. I completely forgot what category it was. And so when they asked me, hey, which Muppet movie is it? I was like, my instinct's telling me it's the old one. And then just about 2 days ago, I realized, I gave them the wrong movie. But we're going to be reviewing this movie anyway, and we're going to have a blast.
I just want chat to know, I tried to fact check him. I sat down 3 days ago to watch the movie, and I was like, there's a lot of Muppet movies. So I sent in our group chat we have for the podcast, and I was like, which one is it? And I was like, is it the new one with Jason Segel? Or is it the older one? And then 30 seconds later, Jeffrey's like, it's the old one. So I tried.
No, I mean, Vega tried too. I mean, 2 days prior, we were on the phone together, and he's like, hey, are we watching the new one or the old one? And I was like, I think the old one.
This says nothing about Jeffrey as a host. I'm sure he's going to do a splendid job.
Who knows, though? Maybe you would have liked the more modern one better.
I mean, that's fair. I just like Jason Segel as an actor because of How I Met Your Mother, but...
See, all these bad takes.
Well, okay, I'm excited to get into this movie because this is really one of the first movies where I not that I didn't have things to say in the other movies, but I think I've liked all the other movies we've watched. So I'm ready to throw hands about this movie. Metaphorical hands. I would not beat my co-hosts.
I wonder who would win in a fight between the 3 of us.
I've been hitting the gym.
I've been hitting the boxes at the factory that I'm working at right now.
And Vega's been hitting his women. So we're all even.
Just going to fact check that. That's not true.
Snopes says.
Fake news.
Fact check. True.
Yeah.
No.
Well, let us know, guys. Hit us up at the Holy Moment Podcast on Instagram or email us. Let us know who you think would win in a fight. No weapons, just shirtless, covered in oil.
For those of you who are watching on YouTube or are privy to a video of us, does this convince you?
Yeah, go check us out on YouTube. We're all currently shirtless, covered in oil. Vega, can you fact check me on that one?
Yeah, he's right.
Anyway, let's start talking about this movie. First impressions. Just like a brief summary of what were you thinking you would get when you turned the movie on, and was it at all different from how you felt about it towards the end?
As per usual, showing what horrible knowledge and what a bad film student I was. I basically knew nothing about the Muppets, couldn't even really tell you the difference between them and Sesame Street. So the knowledge I had going in was very little. The expectations I had going in was also very little. For those of you who don't know, we did some test episodes that we never released just to kind of like figure out the whole podcast dynamic. And also on Jeffrey's request, we watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And for those of you who don't know, it's like 2D animation spliced with real life actors. And I didn't like that movie. And so going into this, that was kind of my only judgment. I was like, I don't think I like cartoons for younger audiences that splice different types of medium, whether it's clay animation, stop motion, puppets, or actual animation. So I went in with low expectations, and I also went in with very little background. Oh, and I came out with my low expectations not even being met. So,
Yeah, that's a better first question to go with. It's just like everyone's first experiences or past experiences with the Muppets. I guess we've already heard from you, Nathaniel, but Vega, what experience do you have with the Muppets as a franchise?
Yeah, as the Muppets as a franchise, I think I only have one memory. I might have watched it twice of watching the Muppets 2014. I thought it was fun. I remembered it mildly fondly, but mostly was kind of forgettable. Remember that Selena Gomez was in it, and remembered that guy, the little Hispanic lad from Modern Family was in it, and that was about it.
I love him.
And then sometime in college, somebody showed me the Muppets, parentheses, 1979, end parentheses. And I liked it then because, okay, so in terms of normal TV Muppets media or movies, didn't consume all of that. But do you know what I did have in high school and I think middle school? No, it was mostly high school. Spotify Premium. And you know what was in like 5 of my playlists? Rainbow Connection.
Yeah.
So it kind of like, maybe it was destiny that I was going to end up liking this because I didn't. It's like randomly liking a theme song from like, I don't know, Pokemon, and then you watch Pokemon for the first time, but the whole thing was, but you liked it before you liked the thing that it's from, kind of thing. So I just like, I had a fondness. I think I had a fondness going into it, and it was like sort of met and watching the movie a few years ago, and it was sort of re-met watching it, maybe a little bit less so on this one. I think on this rewatch, I don't know if it blew my socks off or anything.
Well, I'm kind of similar in that I knew the song before I'd watched the movie, and my freshman year of college, I knew that a girl that I had a massive crush on was a fan of the Muppets or watched the Muppets growing up. And so I had a banjo and I learned Rainbow Connection on the banjo.
Did you really?
I did.
That's funny because to show the difference between Jeffrey and I, this person who will name nameless that Jeffrey's talking about, I also had a big crush on, and I also know that she really liked the Muppet Movie, and I refused to watch it with her for the next 6 years. And I have only now watched it because of this podcast. I actually meant to text her. I meant to text her the night I was watching it and being like, haha, I wouldn't watch it with you, but I'm watching it with this or for the podcast. Out of love. Great person she is.
That is really funny.
But also speaking on the notes of like how, Rainbow Connection is kind of one of those songs that like everyone's heard of, even if they haven't seen the movie. It reminds me maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, where I guess maybe because of the hype for the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender show was kind of like gaining some traction while I was in pre-production or just in production in general. I remember when Secret Tunnels really blew up on Spotify. Do you guys remember that? It was like 2 years ago, year and a half.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many people who had never seen the animated series like found out about it through all these remixes and whatnot. And then they went and watched the show because of the song Secret Tunnels, which is an absolute jam.
I think about Little Soldier Boy from Avatar: The Last Airbender the most. I think that's the song that really gets
It was Brave Soldier Boy.
Brave Soldier,
or is it Leaves from the Vine?
Leaves from the Vine. That's what it's
from
called.
the Vine. Yeah.
That was perfect. Accurate.
But Rainbow Connection, significant because this movie was nominated for Best Original Song.
Really?
That being the song. Yeah. And it won a Grammy for a similar category.
Huh.
And, I'm just going to detail all of these nitty gritty movie facts about the film. It's directed by Jim Frawley. It came out in 1979. Pirates roamed the seven seas then instead of the internet. But the box office, first the budget was $8 million. Box office was $65.2 million.
Good for
So
it.
did very well for itself. Yeah. And in 2009, it was deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress and selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. So it's a very well-loved film by a great many people.
I'm interested to see. I'm interested to hear your guys' opinions on why you think that is. Why you think it is kind of gone down in history and has garnished this representation. As I kind of give my qualms with the movie, I'm curious to see if maybe you guys can change my mind at all. And I'm also wondering if it has anything to do kind of with Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane, by all rights, isn't like a phenomenal movie. It's just kind of groundbreaking for the time and has laid so much, like pretty much all groundwork for a lot of modern films. But if you take Citizen Kane and compare it to the rest of all film history, it's not impressive in itself. So I wonder if the Muppet Movie is anything like that. Did it like lay any groundwork, or I want to know why it's so beloved.
I think it's like this absence of almost whimsy and childlike wonder and joy from your movie watching experience.
Which I just apparently have none of. No whimsy in Nathaniel's heart.
Out the window.
No, it's an interesting thing because it was beloved when it came out, and it remains beloved in the hearts of many people, young people included. It's a really interesting thing. I think that it has to do with it is self-aware, but it lacks cynicism, right? And that's a combo you don't see often. It breaks the fourth wall several times, and it pokes fun at itself and at different tropes. But at the end of the day, it's a labor of love, and its message is one of love and hope. And I guess that's a message that a lot of people resonated with. A lot of people felt was good for their children to grow up with.
I guess this podcast seems like it's just going to highlight that I might be a bad person. I swear it's not. I like happy movies. As last week when we reviewed The Game, which was my movie, and we kind of depressing thriller, and now here we are watching Jeffrey's lovely, whimsical, magical, happy movie. That's really what this podcast is about. It's about, showing our inner hearts through movies, which means Jeffrey is a frog.
I am a frog.
Jeffrey wants to have
yes.
some freaky, not Jeffrey, Nathaniel wants to have some freaky ass birthday party where his brother gives him a t-shirt.
I shoot my brother, then jump off a roof. That's what that's what my heart says. We'll see what your heart says, Vega, when your movie's hopefully drawn at the end of this episode.
Well, so to the comparison though of this movie and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which again we recorded a test episode where we talked about that movie. Just before the episode started, Nathaniel was saying he likes that movie better than the Muppet Movie. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that and your reasoning behind it. And I'm also wanting to know how you feel about that matchup, Vega. Because they're similar in different ways, right? Both are melding together one medium and another. One is like animation and live action. The other is puppetry and live action, which I guess they're not opposed mediums, but they're things that you don't see together all that often.
Yeah, so like I said at the beginning of this episode, I think I'm discovering for myself, I just don't like two different kind of mediums coming together, and specifically in the context of kid movies. So, I didn't like, I do like Who Framed Roger Rabbit more than this Muppet Movies, I think, but I didn't like either of them very much. So, but the reason, I kind of have two reasons I can point to off the top of my brain why I liked Who Framed Roger Rabbit more. Number one is, and this is my biggest gripe with the Muppet Movie, that it was boring. I genuinely fell asleep twice, and then I had to wake up, rewind it, and then like restart it. I don't know, maybe I could have gone in with a better headspace of like excited to watch the movie, but I just found it dragging so much. So at least in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it was a mystery. There was a mystery component of figuring out who was killing the Toons and trying to kick them out of Toontown. So even though again didn't love the execution and the melding of the two mediums, it to me was at least interesting. It also I thought was more consistent in the humor. Not every single joke landed for me in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and there were some funny moments in the Muppet Movie. There were some moments I genuinely laughed at, but I think overall I was able to be entertained more because of the fun mystery element and because I actually thought the humor was pretty solid. So those are kind of my two main right off the gut, because I haven't done a whole lot of thought on why I liked one more than the other, but just right off the bat, it just was more engaging, period. Where I thought the Muppet Movie was, we're going on this road trip and there's kind of an antagonist, but there's not really. It's really just pick up a person, sing, pick up a person, sing, pick up a person, sing, the end. And I thought it was dreadfully boring.
I think that has to do with the fact that when this came out, there already was a TV show. There were 3 seasons in, and this movie was in part to just show us the origins of all of our favorite Muppets. And you can feel that here, where it's like, oh, here's this new character, and here's that new character, and look at this character, right? Here's your old buddy, this and that. So I think that reads. And I do agree with you that I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was very charming, but I was never on the edge of my seat. And it was very much just a ride, a road trip. No, I don't know. It was a leisurely road trip. It didn't really have any people on our tail. But they had people on their tail, but the stakes didn't feel very high.
Yeah. This movie walked so Mad Max Fury could run. Just a movie about a long road trip.
Well, here's another point, though, about the melding of puppetry and live action. You say that you don't like that mix, but this movie paved a way for, like, The Labyrinth, right? And other movies that relied heavily, like, on puppetry. And I think perhaps had an influence on just practical effects in general. It was pioneering that. And I guess the methods that they used in this movie, I could see spanning out into other films that we would think of as very different from the Muppet Movie.
Yeah, and that's what I could imagine being one of the main reasons maybe that it has some significance historically, and why maybe people would hold it in a lot of reverence for like for the future of like kind of film history. All I'm saying is I could see how the practical effects, the puppetry, the riggings, and how they move them. Well, you know, when we're watching it, seems very simple. Oh, it seems like there's some dude with his hand up a puppet's butt going, bah, 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 bah. But even if it is a little more rudimentary compared to what we do nowadays, it still was the beginning phases of a whole new type of like on set special effects. So I definitely want to give it the props it deserves there. Haha, props, pun. But I definitely want to give it the props it deserves there because the special effects or the practical effects were really impressive. And I do see how they could pave the way to movies where you're not even aware you're watching a practical effect or a puppet because they're so advanced nowadays. So I do appreciate that. And I do want to say there's a lot of value in that it paved the way. But just like Citizen Kane, I don't think it's some incredible movie, even though it paved the way for so many movies. I don't think I would give movie more props just because it paved the way for a certain filming technique or aspect. Impressive and good, but it doesn't make the movie better.
Yeah, that's fair. What about you, Vega?
I think between the two, I think both films do something similar in dealing with like merging in the merging of like two different mediums that both of them deal with this. Maybe I'm using the terms wrong, like mixing realism and some form of like almost borderline like absurdism. And they go like, if you're an audio listener, I have one fist and I have another fist, and they're going to butt against each other. That's them butting up against each other. And I kind of like what they do in the Muppets movie more, and it came first, more than what they do in like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it's like instead of almost, I mean, the whole thing is about this like this detective cop guy, right? And then he has to deal with it. Eddie, I think, and then he has to deal with like a cartoon, and then, but like it doesn't necessarily like it definitely is a cartoony movie, but it doesn't always like, I don't know, lean super into like it is visually that, but it doesn't. I don't know. Like maybe Chippendale did the cartoon, like whatever the new Chippendale movie was, does the cartoon live action hybrid better. But I just wasn't really compelled by the story of Who Framed Roger Rabbit as much, because it's just like, oh, this guy's in from the get go a bad situation, and you just follow that through the whole movie, which adjacent thing or a parallelly similar story going on in the Muppets movie. But I liked what's going on with more like following the character of Kermit and then seeing kind of how absurd all of these people are. But then they, for some odd reason, like unite in this like team, like a family. It's nice. It's cool to see. It's like unusual, but kind of cool to see like really personal and human moments and like Kermit in the desert kind of scene, like in this movie. So I think personally the more journey aspect of this movie, me and Nathaniel after the end of last podcast, we're talking for a bit, and then some of what we detailed in that between each other was just like how we might come at some pieces of art or some pieces of like film, like viewing differently. And that I think personally, I might come at something more towards like, was something I watched just good? Was it like, did it affect me in some way? Did it challenge me? Did it whatever, kind of that sort of thing versus maybe, I don't know if this is, well, I guess this might speak to your boring comment, Nathaniel, but like how you just, there's like a big thing about how you consume movies as entertainment. If that's, would you hold that still?
Yeah, totally.
So like, yeah, I mean, not that there's a right or wrong way to consume media and consume art, but I just think I like this film better because of the ride aspect of it, the journey, the kind of just sitting around watching. I mean, it's pretty predictable what's going to happen and what ends up happening, and it was kind of like a bit of a ham shoe ending, TBH. But I don't know, it still resonated with me in a way that I think was somewhat special. Does that mean it's great? No.
Yeah, another interesting difference though is in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The whole point is, oh, look at how much of a fish out of water he is. Look at how strange it is that this live action person is in this animated environment, or the reverse. Whereas in the Muppet movie, they're existing in the real world, and it's not viewed as an absurd thing to gawk at. They're just existing, right? It adds to the absurdism of it, but also it allows us to, buy into it more because everyone else in this world is buying into it.
Just a small thing between the two comparisons of the movies. I do agree. I know this isn't exactly what you're talking about, Vega, but I do actually think I liked the mixing of the two mediums of live action and Muppets more than the mixing of live action and like more classically drawn cartoons than they did in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So I actually did like I liked the world a little more of the Muppets. Like Jeffrey was saying, how they're already integrated. It's not like a big question of what are you guys doing here. I like that they just felt like sentient animals hanging out, and it was a very comfortable. It was a very cozy, warm feeling for sure. If our protagonist from the last movie, Nick, had a friend group like Kermit had, he wouldn't have jumped off a building at the end of the movie. But if you want to know what happened at the end of that movie, go back to the last episode. But then also just want to highlight something you said, Vega. Because I was actually thinking about this the other night when I was editing the previous episode. Something that's cool about the podcast that we're trying to do is we're trying to build a community of film lovers, film enthusiasts, people that like care about film. And I think it's something that should be important to us as we, do 5, 10, 20, 30 episodes. I think it would be a shame if we're like 20 episodes in and you guys and the audience don't really know why we like movies, what kind of movies we like, what do we value in movies? Because I mean, I didn't even think about it until, like Vegas said, a few nights ago, he and I sat down, posted an episode, and really got into the nitty gritty of like, what do I value in a movie? And starting to even realize like, oh, people value such different things in art. And I'm not saying because we went to film school and maybe know some terms and view film and art a little differently than maybe the average person, doesn't mean we have any more of a right to like the meaning we find in it. But I do think it's important that maybe you guys as an audience understand where we're coming from with films. So just really quickly, all to say this was, yes, I do value films very greatly if I'm entertained. But I think me being entertained is a very wide variety. Because I think nowadays when people think of, are you entertained in a movie? Oh, was it quick pace? Was it action? Was it Marvel? Was it something like Edgar Wright? And like, I like all that stuff. That stuff is great. That stuff is entertaining. But I'm not entertained the same way with every single movie. Sometimes I'm entertained because of how they decided to do something really drastically different than the norm, and they decide to tell a story completely different than the 3-act structure, and they try to turn something up on its head, or because they took their time and there really was no plot and it really was just a simple fun journey. So yes, I value entertainment at the end of the day, probably the highest thing when I rank a movie or when I enjoy a movie. But me finding a movie entertaining isn't the same. I am not looking for X, Y, and Z equals entertaining equals I like a movie. It's different. And as we go on and do more episodes, I'm even still finding out for myself. So as we do more episodes, I'll be able to define for you guys and for myself a little more specifically, like, I like this movie. It is entertaining, and it's entertaining in this way. Compared to maybe last week, I thought that movie was entertaining, but it wasn't entertaining in this way. So maybe in this episode, I'll try and focus a little bit on like why I didn't find this movie entertaining. So sorry to go on that spiel. I just thought it might be important for us to throw out there to the audience.
No, I mean, it's a good spiel to go on. I think that I wish I was privy to that conversation, but I had work the following morning. I know for me, I enjoy slower films, or I'm capable of enjoying slower films, and films that perhaps others would have a harder time appreciating. I think it's because I tend to give movies the benefit of the doubt, like a lot, especially if it's art house, and that might even be a fault of mine, because sometimes mistakes can be sort of obscured by this ambiguity of, was this the director's intention, right? Does it actually mean something beyond what I see?
Plus, if it's an art house film, there's like 99% chance that there's a boob in the movie. So that's like always a plus. Compared to, like Marvel movies, there's never going to be a boob. So I get where you're coming from, Jeffrey. I see your point.
Yeah. Like, and for me, I was watching it and I noticed things that didn't quite make sense to me, or that perhaps I would have done differently. I don't know if that's the right thing to say. I haven't made as many movies as these people, but by the end of the film, I was struck by how warm I felt, like in my heart. And usually I try to judge films more technically, but in this case, it just made me feel nice throughout. And the conclusion, despite how rushed some might call it, for whatever reason, it worked for me. I know we have thoughts on the puppetry and like how they managed to get some of these effects going. They didn't add any effects in post-production. It was all on the day.
Wow.
And
that's impressive.
Yeah, for the famous opening number, Rainbow Connection, for one, I thought that was a really beautiful moment. Beautifully shot, beautifully executed. We're very far away from the swamp, and it's a slow zoom in, and then we're seeing Kermit from a distance, and then we're getting closer. Incredibly well executed. One of the more well executed moments of the film for me. But it took a lot to get it going. Jim Henson, who was puppeteering Kermit, squeezed himself into like a metal tube that had an air hose in it with which he could breathe, and a rubber sleeve that like popped out of the tube so that he could, puppeteer Kermit. And there were people standing by in case the tank sprung a leak and he was drowning.
Oh,
Which is a very real possibility for that stunt. It was really difficult, really uncomfortable for him, but it took 5 days to film that.
wow. Something I liked about this film is I bet there's a bunch of awesome behind the scene photos. But any scene we were in, I was always curious of like where is the where's the puppeteer? Where are they hiding? And sometimes it's really obvious when like, oh, he's behind a crate. But then other times you're like, man, how did they do the bicycle shot where like if it's all on the day and none of it's like in post? Like, was it like actual puppeteer with like strings for that? Because there's really nowhere to hide your, Kermit's full bodies and motion working. So, it was a fun game. That would be a fun drinking game, being like trying to figure out where the puppeteer is hiding in the scene.
I'm surprised it wasn't nominated for special effects, but I also wonder what other movies came out that year. Vega, did you have any thoughts on the puppeteering or the practical effects? I know you did some research.
They all sucked. Nah, I'm kidding. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, I think there was like parts of me that were kind of like Nathaniel in the terms of like, man, where on earth are the people supposed to be in this? But then some parts of it was just like I was saying, it just like, I don't know, so warm of a movie, so fun of a ride that I didn't super always care. It kind of immersed me in a way that's like, oh yeah, duh, there's this like giant Muppet thing that doesn't need to be human. So I don't know. I did a little bit of like Googling, but not like heavy research. But I generally was a big fan. Did pull me in for most moments. Some of them were like the bike scene that Nathaniel was talking about. Like, I wonder how they did that. I wonder how they did that. But yeah, I don't think I have anything super deep to say on that.
I heard that shot was actually a little person in costume riding a bike who just had really skinny legs.
Well, they did actually have a little person in the Fozzie Bear suit.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh.
That's a shame.
Also, did you know that the piano player is Elton John?
I was like 99% sure because I saw him and I was like, that looks like Elton John. And then that was the end of that train.
That's really funny because I was lying. I was lying.
Wait, was he really?
I wanted. No, it wasn't.
Oh, well,
man got got.
I done did got.
I wondered what people would think because that was
live.
my thought too. It's like he looks like Elton John. I wonder if I said this, would people believe me?
I did. See, Jeffrey, you have my trust, and now you don't. And you know what? You want to know something, Jeffrey? I wasn't going to bring it up because I'm like, that would just lead to a whole ramble, which is pointless. But you said that, and I was like, I saw the scene, and I was like, that looks like Elton John. Didn't think about it. Finished the movie. Got on Letterboxd like I usually do after watching a movie, and I was scrolling through the cast, and I saw the piano guy, and it wasn't Elton John. And so I wasn't going to bring it up because I was just like, I guess they miscredited on Letterboxd. So I trusted you over Letterboxd, Jeffrey. That's how much I trusted you, but it's gone. Next time you cry wolf, next time you say you're drowning, dead.
I should have trusted that you would check Letterboxd and would be very thorough.
But I trusted you over Letterboxd, so you should feel honored.
I mean, he might have been lying there,
I
but
do.
Isn't the crazier thing that Orson Welles was in this?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Orson Welles is one of those people, and this is probably because I'm horrible at history, but it's always like, like you hear people say like, I'm not going to have any off the top of my head now. I'm trying to come up with an example. When they're like, Aristotle was actually alive was alive during these people. Like just when you think someone was alive a lot longer ago, and then you find out they were actually alive like 50 years ago. Not going to lie, Orson Welles is one of those people when I saw him in the movie, I was like, shouldn't he be dead? Like by a long shot, but that's not true. I mean, he didn't die. Oh gosh, I'm not going to say because I'm going to be super wrong. But the point is, when I saw him in the movie, I was like, I thought that dude was dead.
1985.
He died in 1985? Okay,
he died like 6 years after the movie ended.
6 years later. He died young then. He wasn't that old, was he?
I think he was born like 1915. So,
well, he just looked, okay, he looked good in the movie then.
No, he really did. Man has a presence, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was intimidating. Honestly, it was a bit anticlimactic when he just gave them the go-ahead.
Yeah, I thought that was a little dumb. I thought it was funny how they delivered it, but I also was like, what?
I was expecting a repartee, a back and forth, and then he gives them this speech saying, follow your dreams, and you got what it takes, kid.
Yeah.
But he's like, sign them up for the rich and famous contract. Which is a great line.
Yeah, that's the part that had me. You know what also disappointed me about this film? The humor hit sometimes. The humor was good sometimes. But again, really the only background to the Muppets I have is all of the memes that started surfacing like 10 years ago about like Kermit, all of like dark Kermit and Kermit like pulling guns on people and threatening people. I thought Kermit was going to be way more of a menace that was going to be funny, but he was actually super endearing. I really did love Kermit. He was by far my favorite character in the movie.
Yeah, his whole personality. He's very mild mannered, right? And very non-confrontational. That's just his whole shtick, and he's really charming. But I will say that was something I noticed at the beginning. He sings this beautiful song, Rainbow Connection, which is about longing and dreaming and hoping. And then the agent comes by and asks him if he wants to leave the swamp. And he doesn't really show that drive to want to be anywhere else. Right? He seems very content. And I think that did that opening number a bit of a disservice because it was so much about wanting things, right? And dreaming. But he's like, I'm actually very happy in my swamp. And it felt like it took a bit of prodding to get him out. And then he was on the journey and he was committed to the journey. But I think at first, one might get the sense that he was only mildly interested. That was what I was thinking the first half of the movie. And then the desert scene and then onward, you could feel it more. It was just a quiet passion. But I did have that thought when I first watched it.
I'm gonna push back on that just a bit. I don't think the Muppet Movie is supposed to be some super deep analytical story about anything. I don't think that's what they're going for. I don't think that's the audience. And that's not bad. Like that doesn't make the movie bad, that it's not some thought-provoking deep thing. That's not what the movie was about. Totally fine. But one of the quote unquote deeper storylines and more human aspects, and I'll get a little bit into this when we talk about our holy moments of the film, was Kermit's kind of psychology and decisions and what he was doing and why. And I actually really liked that he was just sitting on that little bench being super content with life. And the guy was like, don't you want to be rich and famous? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I got everything I need here. And it wasn't until he mentioned like, well, you can make other people happy. And then he realized like, oh, I'm kind of in this area and I'm perfectly happy and I love being happy and the world seems good here. But the fact that I can make other people happy, that's not, and that was the moment that his desire seemed to grow. And that's kind of Kermit's whole ordeal is like, he has a passion and he's not like living for other people, but he seems the happiest when the people around him he loves are happy. So yeah, and maybe a more traditional movie, one where I would be entertained, there would have been a stronger call to action. The inciting incident would have been a little more, here's a poor orphan boy who wants to dance for Hollywood, but he's never given the chance. But I really like that Kermit was like, no, I'm content. I don't need that. And it was kind of the road trip was the discovery. Him meeting all the friends along the road was really the discovery into, oh, the reason I want to do this is because I love people and I love being myself and I can make both those things happen. And I thought that was a really cool character development for Kermit.
Yeah, that is a recurring theme of, sometimes we don't know what it is that we want, right? We just know that we want something. And that longing is spoken to in the Rainbow Connection. It's also spoken to in the song that Gonzo sings in the desert. Right? There, I have like vague recollections of this place where I ought to be, right? And I'm going to go back there someday, even though I haven't been there. I feel like I belong there. And so, yeah, I think that's a good point. He is content, or so he thinks, and then he realizes, or it's put in his head, that there's something that he really wants to do, that he's never considered before. And that's what gets him to set out on this journey. And that thing is making people happy.
I also like how it speaks a little bit. I don't think this was quite the route they were going down, but I like that it kind of speaks a bit to the idea of sometimes people come into our lives for good or bad reasons, for better or for worse, and they introduce these new concepts to us. And we get enamored with these new concepts and they start to become so important to us. And it's not until we get days, weeks, months, years down the road, they really stop and like, what? Why am I chasing this dream? Because some guy in a boat said I could be famous? is this what I actually want? Again, that's not quite where they went with this film, but I like that they toyed with the idea of like, sometimes as humans, we don't always sit and think and process and talk to those who we trust with, is this something that will be good for me and something I should pursue? And sometimes we just, someone gives us affirmation and we're like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try my hardest now to become this thing because someone said I could. I think you see it with kids a lot of the times, kids whose kind of parents maybe pressure them into things. And it's like, why are you trying to become a chess champion? Well, because my parents told me I'm the smartest person, like that, the smartest kid I know, and they put me into chess. So just this notion of, that we can get lost in other people's dreams, I think was a little bit of a story woven in there.
But it's also interesting too that, we can quote unquote get lost in other people's dreams, or we can find our dreams with and through others, which is basically the conclusion that Kermit comes to at the end of his self-conversation, his introspection, I guess, which is, these people are following him not because they necessarily believed in him, but because they believed in his dream, right? They saw his dream and they adopted it as their own, but in their own individual ways. Kermit helped them realize what was possible for them and what they really wanted. And now they take full ownership of their decisions. And, I resonate with that because I wasn't always thinking film would be my life, right? I didn't always imagine I would be majoring in film. But I had friends that did film in college, and I would be on their sets, and I'd talk to them, and I'd watch movies with them, and I started getting this itch. And soon enough, their dreams became my dream as well, but in a unique and individual way.
No, it's beautiful that it can go both ways, that we can be positively and negatively affected by, people's dreams. And it's just up to you as a person to kind of wrestle with what is right and wrong for you. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jeffrey. That's a good, it's a perspective I never thought about. But yeah, I guess in college you did have different majors at different points. And I'm sure maybe there's even moments where you felt like you were kind of joining the bandwagon I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out my butt, but I could see from your perspective how it could feel like, oh, well, my friends are doing film, so I'll do film. But I really do believe that, watching you become a film major and watching you in the department, you found your own group of people, your own style, what you want to pursue. Yeah, I think that does kind of reflect Kermit. So maybe you are Kermit, a little Froggy.
Oh, Froggy.
Here's the real question. Vega, what Muppet would Jeffrey and I be?
I think you're Fozzie Bear, Nathaniel.
No, I hate Fozzie Bear.
Tough.
Oh, I hated his Waka Waka. I just wanted to punch him in the face whenever he went Waka Waka.
I'll be honest with you. That kind of wore on my patience too.
Yeah.
I remember that Waka Waka was his shtick, but when he just kept on saying it on stage, I was like, man, the crowd doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Take a hint, maybe, buddy. I love him when he's not saying Waka Waka though.
But let's see. What would Jeffrey be?
I think Jeffrey could be like 85% Gonzo, 5% Monster, and 10% that like slight Bird cameo in the movie.
Like the Who cameo?
Big Bard.
I don't know that last one.
Big Bird?
Oh,
Big Yellow?
Bird. I did not hear you say Big Bird. Okay, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, I see that more than Monster personally. Where does Monster come in?
You in the bedroom.
Nah. Whoa. What if there was a child listening?
Well, when we upload it, we hit the little tab that says explicit, and now the child knows this is explicit. So if there are children listening, you're going to jail. Straight to jail.
Imagine you going on Spotify.com. You go to the Holy Moment. You go to our podcast episodes. You see Season 1, Episode 6, The Muppet Movie, with a big old fat E rating next to it. I don't know how it works, but I'm assuming that might be.
I mean, yeah, it's funny because I don't think I've given any of our other episodes E ratings, even though like 2 episodes ago we were talking about masturbation, not an E rating, but The Muppet Movie, E rating. E.
Big fat,
not
like
everyone.
red E or something like that.
Uh, I mean, I was surprised it was rated G because I so rarely see movies rated a full on G. They're usually always PG. So when it was rated G, I was like, I was really curious if there's going to be anything that I was like, I feel like this should be PG. But I think I also need to remember is the when it came out. I don't know the exact date, but there was some point in film history where they got a lot more strict with ratings, probably like in the 80s or 90s. So I assume this was kind of before the rating system like got a lot harsher. For example, we watched Kramer versus Kramer, and I think that was rated G or PG, and that had like full frontal nudity in it, and it was like an older movie. So, but yeah, I just all to be said, I don't see movies often rated G, and so when I do, I'm like, if this has anything, I'm gonna be pissed. It should be PG. But it was pretty tame. Besides, I mean, I guess there's the women in those swimsuits, but besides that,
Also, let's talk about the musical number with Kermit and the piano dog.
oh yeah, the about like women are the bane of our existence or something like that.
Yeah.
Sounds like a John Lennon
Um,
song.
What do you want to talk about, Jeffrey? Do you want to tell us how you love it? Is it your new
Okay,
anthem?
just that it didn't age well, but like melodically, it's catchy.
I hand you the shovel, you dig a little deeper, you get in the hole. No, I'm kidding. Speaking on that note, this was something I meant to bring up earlier. Another reason I didn't like this movie, and people can boo me if they want. I do not like musicals. I am not, I maybe this makes me seem like not a person and a robot. I'm not that moved by music.
Such an astronomically bad take.
Yeah, I'm not. I like it, like music. Period. I like music. I listen to music. I'm not that moved by music as much as the average human being. So I just find musicals already boring. So when you put a musical with an already boring plot and like really childish, it was dreadful. I will say Rainbow Connection was a pretty good banger. But besides that, anytime they started singing, I genuinely was like, oh, I want to die. I want to not be here right now. That's how I felt. But I'm happy, Jeffrey, you connected with the song of misogyny. Good for you.
It's kind of on brand.
Yeah. Well, one of the things.
All I'm saying is I found myself whistling that tune a bit in the aftermath.
You know, the girl we talked about Jeffrey liking, I wish he had like with his banjo learned that song and then tried to go serenade her with specifically that song. Oh, man. No. But yeah, so I'll just leave it at didn't love the music very much, but I know you guys are more music people than me. So if you guys want to talk about the music, I will be quiet.
I liked Gonzo's song a good bit. I think his vocals, I'd love to see an acoustic version of that song, a cover of it. Because I love Gonzo and I love his vocals, but putting a human voice on that with a trained voice, it's very beautiful.
I think I agree with you. Like it would be more enjoyable. Here's me not being quiet. It would be more enjoyable of a listen with a more beautiful voice. But I think that definitely added to his like melancholy desire for home and that kind of song. His horrifying voice with his horrifying face.
It was perfectly at home in the movie, and I wouldn't have changed it at all. I loved that scene. But I would like to hear another musician do a cover of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, if you guys send us enough requests, we will. And when we say we mean Jeffrey because he's the only one that can sing out of us too. He will do a cover of Gonzo's song. You just got to email us.
Yeah. No, I thought that. But also, the Miss Piggy song was originally supposed to be sung by a musician, but Jim Henson thought that it would be funnier, maybe even day of, to have Miss Piggy sing it. So that's why.
I will say I loved Miss Piggy, and that threw me off. She was voiced by a dude. I don't know. Yeah, that was her voice was very funny. I liked her a lot. Well, also another thing where I feel like I've seen through meme culture that Miss Piggy is a really horrible, horrible person. I thought she was like, I liked her. I thought she was chill. Like, I guess she kind of ran away on Kermit, but Kermit was being a little bit of a, sorry, children, cover your ears. Kermit was being a little bit of a bitch. He was literally about to be like brain fried by Adolf Hitler, and Miss Piggy took out all the bad guys, and he didn't even say thank you. So I actually think this was a move for the feminists, a win for the feminists out there. Go Miss Piggy.
There's a running bit that a lot of celebrities who have worked on Muppet movies have, where they'll talk about an on-set romance with Miss Piggy, and they'll remember it fondly. Like Tim Curry. Tim Curry does that, and he commits to the bit, and he talks about it from time to time.
Aw. That's funny. Nothing like a bit of bestiality.
Man, do we want to move on to our holy moments, or is there more that we want to talk about? Is there anything in particular that stood out to us that we think is worth mentioning? Because it seems like you really enjoyed some of the characters, Nathaniel. Do you think that you would have enjoyed them in a different context? Like a different movie?
It's not impossible, but more than likely, no. I liked Kermit. Kermit was like one of those like underdog, doesn't believe in himself, but is really relatable and a good person that you want to root for. So I liked his character. But ultimately, like, sure, is there a movie out there where it stars Kermit the Frog that I would like? Probably. Like, it could be made, but like 9 times out of 10, no, I don't. I don't think I'm going to just enjoy this type of movie. I just don't think I'm going to enjoy watching Muppets, specifically these types of Muppets, doing Muppet type things. I just don't think will really ever be up my alley. Like Vegas said, to put it simply, like Vegas said last episode for the game, this movie was not made for me. Just everything I like in movies was not this movie.
That's fair. Vega, is there anything about the movie that you would like to talk about before we move on to the holy moment?
Nothing particularly that I don't think I've hit on already. I mean, there's not like a whole lot that I think it's just a general note. I really liked when the Muppets felt like incredibly human, or like the personification of them. Kermit by the fire in the desert kind of moments. So.
Oh, that was a great moment of seeing the time pass and the campfire next to the van. I just thought that those were beautifully shot.
Yeah. That was my. Actually, I almost wanted to bring it up because I thought it was so noteworthy. That was my favorite shot in the entire film, where they really stay on that wide shot and transition through time. It's nothing that hasn't been done before, but it really grounded everything really quickly, because the movie up until then has been so funny and over the top and slapstick comedy, but they did a great job grounding us through that wide shot, from the car broken down to dusk to them starting a fire to get into this emotional scene. Because if they had not done that, I don't think the emotional scene would have stuck as hard as it did. So props to whoever made that decision.
Did that scene stick for you emotionally?
Why don't you ask me my holy moment?
All right. Let's go on to our holy moments. Since you are volunteering, let's hear it.
Yeah, so I was originally going to give the answer, which I think is kind of a cop-out, of the holy moment for me was the practical effects, because I really am impressed. We don't do as many practical effects nowadays, and it really was clear that this movie paved the way, not for every practical effect ever, but like they did a lot of heavy lifting for, I'm sure, a lot of movies in the future to come. So I really did appreciate that. And it worked for me a lot of the times, the practical effects, whether it's like the Muppets or the Muppet growing bigger and destroying the house, the billboard sign that flung the pie on the bad guy's car. All of that stuff worked well for me, but I think it was kind of a cheat out answer, because for me, when I think the holy moment, I think what resonated with me as a filmmaker. And yeah, practical effects are cool, but they didn't really resonate with me. So the more we've talked about it and just kind of reflecting, I definitely think it was that desert scene. I was really shocked by what they decided to do with Kermit's dialogue and his character. I thought it was really mature in a way that I don't think this type of studio movie would always go with their quote unquote climactic character growth. So I really appreciate what they did narratively. And I found myself surprised with, I cared. I gave a crap, because it doesn't matter even if it's good. If you don't give a rip about the character, you don't give a rip about their character growth. So I found myself surprised when Kermit got up, left the campfire, and goes on this monologue to himself. And it's exactly what Vega was saying. It was by far the most human moment of the entire movie. It was by far the most interesting and entertaining part of the movie. And I think that's because, specifically when Kermit said, I love that he was in denial. Even before he left the campfire, he kept saying, and this is really when my ears perked up. And I was like, that was interesting. Well, what is he doing here? When he said, I didn't make a promise to you guys. And I felt like that felt so unwarranted. Like, oh, what's going on here? But then he kept saying it. And he kept saying, like, well, I didn't make a promise to these guys. It's not my fault we're stuck out here in the middle of nowhere. It's not my fault we're not going to make it to Hollywood. I didn't make a promise to no one. And then he went off and he went on his monologue. And I loved when he was like, actually, you know what? I did make a promise. I made a promise to myself. And that's what matters. And you know what? I made a promise to myself. And now I found myself out here with these friends who I care about. So maybe I didn't make a promise to them that I was going to get them to this audition and they were going to get the audition and they would become rich and famous to me. But I owe it to myself. And this kind of wraps full circle to me talking about the beginning of the movie, which is probably my second favorite scene, where Kermit meets up with that like agent from Hollywood. And it's like, hey, you should go out and go try out and be an actor. And kind of that moment of, no, I'm good here. I don't need to go anywhere. I'm happy here. And then he's like, but you can make other people happy. I think that full circle callback of being like, wait a minute, I made a promise to myself that it was more than just like, I need to prove it to myself that I can make it as an actor. It was a promise of like, I want to make people happy. I want to do the thing that's going to make me happy and other people happy. And I think just sometimes we as humans forget that, yeah, it's great to do things for other people. If you are married, it's so important to do things for your significant other. If you have children, that's such a high priority. If you have friends and family, you got to put them above yourself sometimes. But I think sometimes we forget that we are just as worth as humans doing things for. I'll relate this a little bit to a personal story. Growing up since I was pretty young, I've been overweight for most of my life, and I'm still overweight. And I've always had different motivations why to lose weight. And it really hasn't been until the latter few years, as I've actually made progress, that I realize I am worth losing weight for. Yeah, it's great to lose weight now that I have a girlfriend. It's great to lose weight when you want to be more attractive for women, when you want to do this or that to feel more confident. But I realized like I am worth the effort. And I just felt like that was such a human moment when Kermit in the desert realized he is worth the effort. Yeah, it's great that he wants to do right by his friends, but he was worth the effort to go on this journey for. And I thought that was awesome. Really liked that.
That's a great holy moment. What about you, Vega?
Yeah, I think my holy moment might stem off of the conversation that Kermit has with the agent Bernie, and how the agent in their back and forth shares that how we can share or how we can make I think the quote was I think I wrote it down, how we can make millions of people happy. And then like within Kermit you can kind of see like this like spark kind of like light up for a moment in him, and then like whether it was like super intentional or unintentional and like this overarching story way, how that like line there kind of can act as like a like through the journey that Kermit goes on individually as a frog person, and like with the people that he grows with and meets along the way on his pursuit to Hollywood, that and in the relationships that he like fosters there, and in like in all of that on a personal level for Kermit, but then also like a large level pursuit kind of thing, that it's maybe it wasn't intentional, but I think to me, I think I found it kind of beautiful that a lot of the film feels like this fulfillment of the song, in which like Kermit finds and is able to share this quote unquote rainbow connection, end quote. I don't know, I thought it was really beautiful. And I think that that's such a okay, maybe this is me reading too much into it, but maybe like I think moments like that are really special, really. But like not that everyone's life is just some sort of narrative that's been written out or whatever, but I think there's like some sort of like the sails are being adjusted and your life kind of starts going a different direction because of some sort of mindset change or something that has fundamentally altered how you think, or like, and you might not even notice it. Like, I don't know if Kermit actively, but like I'm saying, I don't know if it was a super intentional thing, but I think that might be it for me. Kermit, in his pursuit to share happiness with others, finding that rainbow connection.
I really like that idea because, yeah, like we open up on him. It was interesting because like he's singing about this rainbow connection, and you get this idea It's almost like he's singing about something he's longing for, doesn't quite know what it is. And I think I fully agree with you, Vega. I like in that moment where Bernie is like, "Don't you want to make people happy?" And you could tell Bernie is kind of like sleazy, and he's like, "Don't you want to make people happy? I.e., make a ton of money." But it really was like a snap, a connection. He's like, "Wait, the thing I was just singing about, could it be making people happy and this connection?" And then I feel like he didn't fully understand it until he went on that journey of like the rainbow connection is like the usually you
Friends
can't
we
say
made
this
along the
without
way.
yeah, I was gonna say usually you can't say this without being totally cheesy, but it is literally the friends he made along the way was this rainbow connection. So I do like this idea of like he's almost singing the song from his heart that he's longing for, but doesn't quite even know what the lyrics mean until this guy comes along and just kind of snaps, and then he has to discover the rest as he goes on the journey. But yeah, that's good. What about you, Jeffrey? What's your holy moment?
Yeah. So my holy moment is the Rainbow Connection opening number, which we've talked about it a ton already, and my thoughts have been spoken in large part by the both of you. I think it lays the seed, it plants a seed for the viewer that it holds the key to understanding the rest of the film, right? And it's planted so carefully and it's executed so well that, at least for me, it immediately had me invested in the movie, right? From the cinematography to like the slow buildup of the banjo, and then we see Kermit. The introduction of Kermit was grand, and yeah, so I would say that's my holy moment.
I'm really happy that the holy moment for us, for all three of us, is kind of the two. I don't think anyone will really argue that the two most human kind of, hey, forget the over the top acting, forget the fact that they're Muppets, forget the fact that they're on this crazy hijinks type adventure. And when all that's stripped back, I think the two moments that really stand the test of time for this film is the scene in the desert and the opening scene. So I'm really happy that all three of us, while enjoyed the movie to different degrees, can all kind of agree like the most important part was this authentic human connection. And I think that's true for most people, just looking for that authentic connection.
How about that part though, where Mr. Hopper offers Kermit $500 and says, "Hey, if you play your cards right, you can get $500 every year."
Every single year.
I looked it up and like, what was that worth in 1979? Maybe it was a great deal of money. It's like $1,000, $1,500
Oh
a
man.
year.
I mean, hey, if you're a frog, what do you got to buy? He doesn't even wear pants, Jeffrey. Can you imagine? Imagine if we never had to wear pants or gosh, underwear. Underwear's so expensive. We would have so much money. I could live off $1,000 if I ate flies, didn't have to wear pants, and kept stealing people's cars. I'd make it far in life with $1,000.
For sure.
I also just want to say before we move on is just, was it just me or were some of the Muppets scary to look at? Is there any uncanny valley that you guys feel looking at the Muppets, or is that just me?
I think that's just you.
Okay, like Big Bird, kind of horrifying. Like imagine Big Bird just like his neck or her neck, whatever Big Bird is, scooping down and just opening its jaw and eating you.
I loved Big Bird as a kid. Big Bird would never hurt me.
Doesn't Big Bird live in an alleyway? I know Oscar the Grouch lives in a trash can, but doesn't Big Bird live in an alleyway?
I forget.
I think
they all
Big
live on
Bird isn't
Sesame
safe.
Street.
I think if you go down an alleyway, he's going to come out and shank you and then eat you.
That's a horrifying thought.
Oh my gosh. Have you guys ever seen, on a tangential note, have you guys ever seen The Sopranos?
I know of it, but I've not seen it.
Not the direction I thought you were going with this, but continue.
Well, I believe like Tony Soprano, the actor who played Tony Soprano, made a cameo on Sesame Street.
Really?
I'm like,
I think I saw a clip
Tony
of that.
Soprano, Sesame Street. Hey, chat, can somebody pull this up? Yeah, he talks to James Gandolfini talks about feeling scared. So he went onto the show in 2002 to talk to the character, like the little orange fuzzball thing, Zoe, about being scared.
Oh,
Very cool. Yeah.
scared of mobsters?
Well,
I think it was Scared of the Dark.
Scared of the dark. Okay. Well, speaking of fact checking, Big Bird does just live in an alleyway. So imagine going to Chicago and just going in an alleyway and a giant ass bird coming out and mugging you. So be scared of that.
again, Big Bird would never mug me. We're tight, and I was his biggest fan. I remember watching a movie. This reminded me of that movie where Big Bird also is on like a road trip of some kind. And my first thought was, is this like a connection there? Like, is this a
Oh,
crossover episode? I remember really loving that movie as a kid, but I looked it up recently, and the reviews for that movie are not.
yeah.
as
Please,
good.
please
They're
don't make
mixed.
us watch it, Jeffrey. Please stop making us watch child movies with mixed animation and puppets.
See,
Okay.
Oh, hey, well,
I raised this idea. We throw away this system of picking movies every week out of premeditated movies we've already picked, and we just go for like whatever kind of makes sense. So the next plausible thing to watch after the Muppets movie 1979 is not The Muppets 2014. I think it's Elmo and Grouchland.
No, we would never escape. We would never escape Muppet World. It reminds me of like when I would go on college drives with like my friends, and we would start with country, and then slowly we go into pop, and then slowly we find ourselves in rock, and then musicals. It would just be like a weird ebb and like there'd be very random connections how we got there. But I just would love to see how we go from like the Muppet Movie to like some slasher horror film. Oh, and it's Big Bird. There it is. Isn't there like a horror film? I know there's a Winnie the Pooh horror film.
I don't think it's a horror film. I think it's kind of just like an adult comedy that uses like Muppets. I think,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I like it very much. Not to be a prude, because I'm not a prude, but
He's a slut.
I like Jim Henson. I like the idea of Jim Henson rather. This like, I don't know, like kind-hearted guy who wanted to show what like awful puppetry could do, and it's like sort of soft-spoken-ish, but sort of believed in something and wanted to like, I don't know, spread hope and love or something like that.
Bro, that just sorry to interrupt you. That's unlocked like a core memory. I mean, maybe how you describe Jim Henson. I totally forgot. So there's a little bit of lore for me. My grandfather was a missionary for a lot of his life, and then he came back and was a preacher. And I completely forgot that for some reason, I don't remember any context, but for some reason, he would use puppets in his sermons. And whenever I would go over to my grandparents' house, because they lived at the church, I would play with these puppets. So I guess you just describing this loving man spreading love through puppets reminded me of my grandfather.
Well, like it's like this, I guess this vague social, like this a vague idea I have of Jim Henson in my mind thanks to like the internet, but then also I watched the movie Saturday Night about the first ever night of Saturday Night Live, and they showed Jim Henson there and that, and he's kind of portrayed as that kind of guy.
Yeah, I didn't know really anything about him, but he sounds cool. He sounds like a man that I would go, at least you'd go eat dinner with.
I mean, probably. I don't really know. I mean, I'm not like celebrity adjacent historian, so he might have been like horrible, but I don't know if he was.
everything I've heard has been very, very good. Anyway, ratings. Let's move on to ratings, guys.
One.
All right. What'd you say, Vega?
1.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, no. I'm so torn when it comes to this rating. I still myself, I'm sure audiences, but even myself, I'm still trying to figure out and traverse how I kind of engage with our rating system. And this movie has kind of forced me to maybe view it a little differently. So, yeah, sorry, Jeffrey, cut you off.
No, I mean I want to hear this. Tell me about your rating. You have us because Vega and I both like this movie, and I can speak for myself. And I'm really curious to see if you put this in anathema or fire and brimstone.
Well, here's my thought process. I feel like I've been engaging with our ranking system and just for those who don't know, our ranking system is degrees away from holy. So we have 7 ranking systems, and they're all moving away from very holy to not holy. And I think up until this point, I have been giving the idea of holy this like, was the director and filmmakers involved striving to make the best movie they could, reaching for this holy idea of film? But I don't know if I want to continue to view it that way because arguably, I do think so. I do think these creators were very deliberate with the choices they made. It worked for a lot of people. And even though it wasn't for me, it worked, I think. So therefore, under my own definition, I feel like it has to go relatively high on the scale of holiness. But I don't want to give it that. So I don't know if I'm trying to rework our scale into being like holy in the eyes of what I view as important and holy in filmmaking, which makes it a little more subjective than objective. But I'm gonna it's not gonna get me any time. It's like when the waiter comes up and says, "Hey, you want to order?" and you say, "I'm gonna go last," and then they're 10 seconds later. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go last. So I have those 10 seconds to think about what I want to actually give it.
That was a whole lot of yapping to not give your answer.
I'm an external processor, Vega. I'm sorry.
Okay, I guess I'll go. Maybe to keep with the trend of what I think I answered last week, I think I might give it the Drunken Monk. Like, all in all, maybe the screenplay wasn't the best thing ever. Maybe some things could have been pulled off a lot better, but there was a lot of moments that, like, I think in a general sense, headed in the right direction. And then I think in some moments, it kind of just stumbled into this really, like, beautiful, beautiful thing. But I don't think it was necessarily this pursuit to make something extremely beautiful and life-altering and heart-changing or whatever. It just kind of had this really lovely, lovely moments in it. Like the beginning, like some parts along the journey, like the part in the desert kind of thing. So I'd probably give it Drunken Monk.
Likewise, I think Vega and I are aligned in this. I'm going to give it Drunken Monk. Again, perhaps parts were a bit rushed. Perhaps the stakes didn't feel super high. Perhaps they didn't need to. I had fun, and at the end of the movie, I was left feeling very warm. And so I think Drunken Monk is appropriate.
Okay. I got myself a little more than 10 seconds. Well, I cannot keep a 3-week streak of all of us doing Drunken Monk. So, this is what I'm going to say. If I was going off purely the subjectiveness of what I thought about this movie, I would put it in Fire and Brimstone. I think this movie committed one of the worst crimes a movie can commit, and it was boring. Movies can be a lot of things. They should not be boring. I wouldn't put it in Anathema because that's just straight up like godforsaken, horrible, hot garbage, like the Serbian film. Is that what that? I think that's what the movie's called. Anyways, so I'm not going to rate it purely objectively. So I'm going to try and rate it under the notion of like, was this director reaching for this idea of holiness in film? Were they trying to do the best they could with this movie? And I think for me, honestly, I'm going to put it in the Prudish Grandma. And this is the reason why. I think if I did this objectively, it would have been in Fire and Brimstone if they didn't pull off those holy moments we talked about earlier. The setting up of the movie with Kermit's kind of internal, what does he want out of life, and the song, and then the payoff in the desert. I think actually move it up a whole notch. But the fact that it was just a whole lot of nothingness on the in-between, I guess there were some decent songs, there were some funny jokes, but I don't think I can forgive the writers and directors. And I get it. I'm 25. I've never seen it. I have no nostalgia for this. It's not made for me. But I just would like to think they could have done more in between the setup and the payoff. There's a whole hour of movie in between that. They could have done something more than just wild goose chase running around shenanigans. And for that, I think they didn't strive for holiness, in my opinion. And therefore, it's kind of going the Prudish grandmother, not quite that Drunken Monk, not quite that fun. We're having a good time. We're striving for holiness. But we nailed a few things along the way. But for the most part, we missed the mark. So that's my Prudish. I think that's my first ranking for Prudish. I think that's any of our first rankings for Prudish grandmother. I think
that might be. I think I might have given a few films that rating during our test recordings, but of our filmed episodes, I think that's the first. So congratulations.
Yeah, it feels good. It feels good to be the first one to mark it in. I'm excited for the first film that is Fire and Brimstone. I'm excited to shit on that movie, whatever it is. Probably Cats.
Well, I guess it's probably time now for the hat.
Hey.
If y'all are feeling ready for the hat.
I'm ready.
I don't know if I'm feeling ready for the hat.
What we got? 4 for Vega, 4 for Jeffrey, and 2 left for me. So I'm excited. After this week, I feel like I want something a little more serious. Since this was so fun and lighthearted.
All right.
Here we go.
Come on.
Hey.
Is that your film?
That's Vega's.
Nope, it's Vegas. Exciting. What category is it for?
It's been so long, I don't remember.
It's for black and white.
It's for black and white.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I'm excited then. I've
Yeah.
been wanting to see more black and white films.
Yeah. It's funny. We have a black and white category. Not one of us chose an old movie. I think we all chose movies made after 2021.
I think he's right.
But no, I'm excited. I remember seeing the trailer for Come On, and I really wanted to watch it in theaters, but I never got around to it. And I haven't seen enough A24 films, so this will be a good one.
It's like what's the movie that we watched a few weeks ago about the guy who has to look after his son, and then they go through the custody battle?
Oh,
yeah, Kramer versus Kramer.
It's like Kramer versus Kramer, except it's his like uncle, and also it's in black and white, and also it is like a radio thing, and then also it's really good. Not that Kramer versus Kramer isn't really good.
Mark Ruffalo's in this, right?
That's a funny way to say Joaquin Phoenix, but yeah.
Is it? Is it actually Joaquin Phoenix?
I'm like 99.99%
I
sure.
feel like I don't believe you.
All right, like
Let's
always,
find out.
pulling up Letterboxd. We got
It's Joaquin
first,
Phoenix, dang
yeah,
it.
we got Joaquin Phoenix. We got Gabby Hoffman, Woody Norman, Scott McNairy. I keep on scrolling down. Maybe I'll find who you're talking about, but I
Shut
don't
up.
think he's on the cast.
Well, sweet. Well, I'm very excited for this next movie, which will be
It's
out
like-
next Monday.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome because it's one of the few movies. This means just about absolutely nothing to our audience. It means nothing to our audience. This is one of the few movies on Letterboxd that Matt, like
Cole.
from college. Yeah, Matt Cole from college
Oh, just
gave. Well, I was just not gonna out him on the. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, I guess. Matt Cole. It's one of the few reviews that I've ever seen from him that he's like serious.
is it really? Oh, that's a
Yeah.
big deal.
So like he gave it a
Wow.
4 stars. He took it seriously. I watched it like 5 or 6 times. I like it a lot.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, sweet. No, I'm excited.
That's incredible.
Do you know where to find it?
I believe it's on Prime. The last
Okay.
time I checked, it was on Prime. If not, then you could just go on a flight somewhere and it'll be an in-flight movie if it's like over a 10-hour flight. So I think that should be really accessible for our viewers and us.
Yeah. Let me just go get $1,000 out and fly to China. Perfect. Not even get off the airplane. Just wait.
Just for the
until it-
movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Because we're
like-
rich like that.
It's like I was on a flight to Amsterdam, and the only thing I watched on the way back was The Fault in Our Stars. However many times you can watch The Fault in Our Stars from the Amsterdam airport to Atlanta.
Why? Why?
It was like one of 3 movies that was in English that looked like something that I could watch next to somebody I was in high school with.
Were you okay afterwards?
I mean, yeah, wasn't
Did
the
you
best
cry?
thing I could have watched. I think the answer, if I cried or if I didn't cry, might be left to if we ever review The Fault in Our
Ooh.
Stars on.
I would
The Holy
love
Moment.
to review The Faults in Our Stars. That's good. That's good mystery. Good cliffhanger. Season 2.
I'd have to read the book. That'd be my homework
Yeah.
for it if we ever.
That's
think
why
I
I want
have
to
the
watch the
book
movie.
downstairs.
I've read the book, but I haven't seen the movie.
Well, anyway, folks, you can find us on YouTube, on Spotify, anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, or maybe not everywhere that we can watch videos. Facebook, certainly, and YouTube. Someone else can probably list these off better than I can. Hey, I'll give this to you, Nathaniel.
Oh, well, I think you said it perfectly. Anywhere you
Anywhere.
can find, just log on to Twitter, anywhere you find your podcast, I'm sure people listen to podcasts on Pornhub. Sure, someone's done that. We're probably there, mostly because this
We
whole
probably didn't post it, though.
No, we did, because remember this whole episode, we are shirtless, covered in oil. So just go search that up on the old web browser and you'll find us. But no, seriously, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. If you want to watch fun little reels, videos, or other social media thingamajiggers that people like to get addicted to, you can find that on YouTube Shorts, Twitter, not Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and sometimes Facebook. And if you want to send us an email to say you hate us, to say you love us, to give us advice on how to be better, you can send us an email at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. I would say specifically for this one, if you want to send us an email and tell us which Muppet you would eat at Thanksgiving. I want to know.
Camilla. That's easy. She's a literal chicken.
Wait, what was her name?
Camilla.
Camilla?
Yeah, I think so. Like Gonzo's wife.
Jeffrey had that name on lock.
He knew. He also, I wanted to say this
He
whole
whatever
episode.
whatever question you asked, that's what he was going to answer.
I wanted to say this whole episode, so I'll say this at the very end. Jeffrey, I didn't know you had a cameo in the movie. At the very beginning of the movie, when they introduce Animal, and he has a chain around his neck, and he's chained to the chair, and he's just going, woman, woman, woman. And he's just like animalistically chanting woman with a chain around his neck. I was like, oh, that's our friend Jeffrey right there in the flesh.
That's crazy. That's wild. I'm hosting this episode. You should show me more respect.
It'd be great if you just had a chain around your neck.
Oh, man. And with that, I guess we're leaving y'all, good folks at home. Enjoy your nights, your mornings, your afternoons, whatever time of day you're watching this. Yeah, I'm going to pull a Truman Show here. Good night.
Doesn't he say more than just good night? He does. That's not even the quote.
Yeah, but no. I got the gist of it earlier when I said, like, evening, morning, afternoon.
Oh my gosh.
The whole Truman Show shtick, and then good night.
That's going to be so fun to edit that just on. That's going to be really funny to end it on.